Hello, welcome to Adroll Live. I'm Laura Finity. I'm the multimedia content manager at Adroll. We do these live streams every Wednesday about 10:30 a.m. Pacific time to bring together lots of different marketers, people from different founders of companies, CEOs from direct-to-consumer companies to bring you a whole wealth of experience and knowledge of the direct-to-consumer market. Now, today is pretty exciting. We've got an amazing guest coming up. We have Captain Lee Rosbach, who's a star of Bravo TV's Below Deck. He's here to discuss leadership and management style and the challenges of being a captain of a ship, and also how to get your team motivated. So I know we have some huge fans out there. Some of them are on our team, just massive, massive fans of Captain Lee and the show. But we're really excited as well because he's got a little bit of a secret life of the business that he's had, previous companies and other businesses outside of what you may know him for on Bravo TV's Below Deck. So that's coming up very shortly. Before we get into the interview today, I also want to remind you, of course, we are live. So if you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, you can ask comments, you can get your questions in. All you need to do is type them into the chat box and they'll come to me here in my little home studio. So you can get in touch via that. We love to have your questions, and of course for Captain Lee as well. We do have some other exciting news. Today, we have launched Adroll's first podcast. I wish I could play some sound effects there, but I can't do that. So we have our new podcast, which launched today, which is called Unrolling E-commerce. As you can see there, explores the experiences and insights of companies and individuals that are building a brand and growing their D2C business. So this is really great if you have a company, if you have a side hustle, you want to grow your existing business. There's like a whole host of information and experience and interviews that you can tap into. It's on, we have our website, adroll.com. You can see the tab there for podcasts, but it is on, of course, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, all of those good places. So we've got 2 episodes live at the moment. A new one comes out every Wednesday. So we've got how ambitious brands turn economic uncertainty into opportunity, and how brands engage their audience and build a community. So those are the first 2 episodes that we have up, but we've got a new episode coming out every week on Wednesday. So check that out. I'll play a little preview of that later on, and then also later after our interview with Captain Lee, we've got Dave's Diary, episode 11. If you've not met Dave before, if you've not heard of Dave, you're in for a treat. He's our company mascot, and he's got some advice for direct-to-consumer social media marketing. So that's coming up later on this morning. All right, without further ado, let's get into welcoming our guest here today. I'm joined on the live stream by Captain Lee Rosbach. Good morning.
Good morning, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's so exciting to have you join us. As I was saying, we have a lot of fans in the office. We have obviously a lot of loyal followers online who love you as well. So we're so excited to speak to you today.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. And how you kind of got into yacht life, and how that all started for you.
It was quite an accident. I was living in the island and actually going broke in the islands. We went down there to open up a restaurant. We lived in the Turks and Caicos for about 3 years, and they were building a casino just down the street from our restaurant. Well, the casino got about 2.5 floors up, and they ran out of money. And so the restaurant couldn't be self-sustaining without that large hotel sitting right next to us. So slowly but surely it declined, and I needed a job. And there was a little 3x5 card index card on the bulletin board at the local dive shop that said Nate wanted to help deliver a sailboat. Of course, my timing was impeccable as usual. It was in the middle of hurricane season. And I took the job, and that was the first time I'd ever been out on the ocean.
So it wasn't something that like a bit of an unexpected love then. So you started, on the ocean, and you were like, that's it, I'm in love.
Yeah, pretty much. If it hadn't been for the fact that I was seasick for the whole trip. It was terrible. But I still liked it. I mean, in between sticking my head in the bucket.
Any tips for getting over seasickness? Because I feel like that's going to be some valuable information.
It took me about a year.
So you really committed to it then?
Every time I went out, I would get sick. had to do my watch, pull my watch, my 4 hour stint at the wheel. I'd go up there with my bucket, and everybody else would just vacate the premise because they didn't want to be anywhere around me. So
Yeah, that kind of nausea can be a bit contagious, right? Once someone sets off, then like other people start also feeling queasy. So
yeah, I've seen it happen.
So you were a bit older, getting started into into captaincy, I guess. You were 35 when that life started for you.
Yeah,
So how was that like? How was that experience for you?
it was tough because hell, you had to go back to school. You had to really want it. It's not something that it takes a long time to get up to large tonnage. You have to spend 720 days at sea before you're allowed to even sit to your first captain. I mean, that's for the smallest license I've got, which comes nowhere close to letting you run anything like I run today. So I've got 20 years and trying to get to the point where I'm at now.
Yeah, I think some people don't appreciate how many hours it takes. It's the same for pilots and anybody who's, responsible for any kind of like a vessel or
Each increase in scope and upgrade takes an additional year or 2 years at sea. And that means at sea underway. That doesn't mean sitting at the dock. That doesn't mean being employed. That means you have to be out in the ocean and moving. So a year of sea time could take you 3 years to accumulate.
wow, that's crazy. So much, yeah. And prior to, so I guess your life before kind of going onto the seas. Can you tell us a little bit about that in terms of managing restaurants? And as I'd mentioned, this is also kind of part of your business and experiences that people perhaps don't know about because it's obviously not as public as your TV work.
Restaurants we got into, I originally was in construction and manufacturing. And in the 80s, that's when the bottom kind of fell out of both of those industries. Manufacturing went down the toilet along with construction. And a lot of stuff was going overseas at the time. So not wanting to travel anymore. The wife and I decided to try our hand at opening a restaurant. I'd always had a part-time job working with events going up and that sort of thing. So seemed like second good reason that difficult. And that's how we got into that.
What about some of your kind of like most valuable lessons that you've learned? And, so where and how have you learned some of the valuable lessons and skills that you have in terms of, working with a team and running a crew of people?
Most of the lessons that you learn, most of my valuable lessons that I've learned come from making huge, costly mistakes. I found that if you don't make a big mistake and it doesn't cost you anything, you usually don't learn anything from it because you don't have any skin in the game. And therefore, you're probably doomed to make that same mistake again because, well, maybe nobody noticed you made that mistake. So it didn't really cost you anything. And if it doesn't cost you something, you didn't learn anything. You're probably going to think that you can get away with it again. That's not the case. So if the mistake didn't cost you anything, odds are you didn't learn anything.
And what about with the experience you have with managing restaurants and that type of business? Did that teach you kind of some valuable lessons about working with managing a crew and working with people in that kind of team environment?
Usually when you manage a team of people, whether it's 5 or 6, whether it's 25 or 30 or a couple of hundred, it's pretty much the same. You don't get their trust by doing anything other than earning it. And in order to earn it, you have to be honest with them, and you have to have integrity, and you have to be willing to step up to the plate, admit when you've done something wrong, and if you have to admit it in front of them, so be it. And then move on, but keep moving forward. And I think that's very important. And they have to be able to trust you. And the only way that they're going to trust you is if you can display to them that you do have integrity, that you are honest, because they'll see through anything else in a heartbeat.
I feel like you have a very calm energy, which has got to go a long way when, obviously, like potentially in stressful situations, making decisions, and just trying to kind of, basically be a voice of authority as well. Like, do you feel like you've kind of just come into this like calming place throughout as you've gone through your career?
Well, when a crisis arises, you always have to stay calm and you have to lead. You can't ever let them see you sweat. You may be nervous as hell, you may be scared to death, but the fact remains, whether you're at the helm of a ship or flying an airplane, and when there's trouble on the horizon, you have to confront it. You can't run away and hide. There's no 911 out on the ocean. It doesn't exist out there. So, and you need your team to hold it together. And they're not going to hold it together if you don't. And that generally comes from experience.
I definitely say I would find it the idea is kind of terrifying of being a little bit out and alone on the seas. Like you say, there's no 911. There's no one you can call to be like, please help, unless you have, people nearby. So I don't know, I admire it because I think it would make me nervous, I've got to say.
Being nervous is not always a bad thing. Being nervous, every time I take a large boat or a large yacht away from the dock, or every time I put one in the slip in a tight quarter situation, I'm always nervous. And I think that gives you an edge, because I think when you start to get complacent, that's when mistakes are bound to happen. I've done this a million times. I could do this in my sleep. No big deal. Of course, it's a big deal. You've got 700 tons moving with inertia, and you don't have any brakes.
So nerves are a good thing. No, it's true. It gives you an edge, right? You just, complacency is never good. And that's when you'll maybe miss things that you'd be otherwise like a little bit more conscious of. Mentioned with relationships and with a team, like, do you have any ways in which you build trust and relationships? And you mentioned honesty, obviously, is being an element of kind of keeping things harmonious. But do you have any advice for how you've built teams or how you've created those harmonious relationships?
Well, you have to constantly be evolving and learning. I think if you stop learning, that's when they should probably start shoveling the dirt, because you always have room to learn. And the team is a team, whether it's out on a football field, on a basketball court, on a yacht, in a restaurant. Basically, they're the same. And there's no such thing. And you hear this term tossed around a lot: fake it till you make it. Well, that's BS.
It's okay.
Because you can't fake it. If you don't know something, you need to just admit it, own up to it, and then go learn it. Because that's what people expect out of it. I can't think of anything worse than people expect you to know something. They put their faith, they put their trust in you, and you decide to fake it till you make it. Well, what if you don't make it? Not only have you sacrificed your own integrity and your own honesty, but you could cost somebody their life out at sea. You really want your airline pilot faking it till he makes it?
Ooh.
I think not. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that philosophy.
Yeah, I think perhaps maybe works for like a level of confidence, but otherwise
that's that difference between ignorance. Ignorance is just not knowing. There's no fault in being ignorant. Stupid is when you refuse to admit you're ignorant and then refusing to go learn. Then you jump over the ignorance category straight into stupid. And I really don't have a lot of tolerance for stupid. I don't do stupid wrong.
Yeah, I feel like you could perhaps turn a little bit Gordon Ramsay-ish. I think also another person who has a low tolerance for stupidity, because also it is just that thing of being like, it's one thing not to know, but another to go into that realm of like, of stupidity.
Well, the people that you're trying to lead are going to know, and they will appreciate you admitting that you don't know something.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll get them an answer, and you'll do the right thing, because you just can't go wrong by doing the right thing, and they're going to know it. So rather than trying to fake it, you're better off just owning up to it and saying, I don't know, but we'll get through this. Here's how we're going to go through it.
We have a question here because we are on live broadcast at the moment, and we have a question from Jamie who had asked, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self when you were starting your career, what would it be?
Know when to shut up. Know when to close your mouth and open your ears and listen. And then take what you've learned, what you've listened to from somebody who knows, and apply it in your own circumstances.
That's some solid advice. Looking at the yacht experience, so it's a very it's a white glove service. People, you have an expectation of very high customer service. So what's your advice for developing that experience?
If you don't know what white glove service is, if you don't know what 5-star service is, it can be expensive, but you have to go out and experience it. That's the only way you can learn it. And so, fly first class. Go to an expensive restaurant, to an expensive resort. Pay attention to the details. Understand what it feels like to be treated at that level of service. Because if you don't experience it, it's very difficult to impart knowledge that you don't have to somebody else. At that point in time, you're just trying to fake it. And, once in a while, take your team out to dinner. Is it going to set you back maybe a couple of grand? Could be. But have them pay attention to the details. Have them pay attention to what the waiter does. Have them pay attention to that when one of the clients says, excuse me, could you hand me my sunglasses over there? And the person goes over and picks up their sunglasses, and instead of just handing them the sunglasses, they clean them first before they hand them to them. Because that's where the devil is in the details. And that's what separates 5-star service from just service.
I feel like a lot of that as well, we kind of have those in-person experiences, but now a lot of companies are taking that online, and they're, trying to create experiences for the customer, even though you might not have that direct contact, especially at the moment during times like this where we're socially distanced and things like that. And I think like thinking through those same steps, right, as imagining what might be that extra layer that you could offer to your guest, whether it's online, in person, is just, going to be so valuable to offering a different experience.
Sure. How many times have you had somebody say, online, I'll get right back to you, even if we're disconnected. And then all of a sudden, after you've been on hold for 45 minutes, the line goes dead. And you wait for a week for somebody to call you back, and it never happens. That's the opposite side of the coin of good service.
High blood pressure.
Yeah, there's a lot of busted cell phones out there because of that.
We've got a question here from Brandon who'd asked, how do you continue to learn and grow as a leader when you're one of the people to go to, for questions and wisdom?
For me, I read a lot, and I see situations that I learn from. I extrapolate a lot of things from what I call situational reading. Like one of my favorite books was The Old Man and the Sea, and by Hemingway. And I think there were a lot of great leadership qualities displayed by this solitary man that was out there fighting this huge fish for days on end. And that's sometimes how I get some of my best information. And then observing great leaders.
Awesome. Of course, just to let people know, you can submit your questions whilst we're live at the moment. Just type them into the chat box and they'll come here and we can get those over to Captain Lee. What about, working at sea in a confined space? You're around a small group of people. How do you keep a team motivated? And I think that's something that a lot of people are struggling with now, with remote teams, but also just, how to keep teams and managers engaged and when working remote.
I think that a good attitude is contagious. I really believe that. And it's how you handle yourself that's going to determine how your team reacts to it. And that's always been a very positive thing for me, just having a good attitude, regardless of what transpires during the course of a charter or during the course of a week-long charter or a 3-day charter. Whatever it is, you can get through it. If you're down a crew member, it's not a big deal. It's nobody's fault. It happened. Deal with it, move on, and we'll get through it, and we'll be better for it. There's nothing out there that you can't overcome.
We also have a video question here from Evie, which I'll play for you. This one has been submitted.
Hey, Captain Lee. I was wondering if you would like to share with us the most challenging customer experience you've had, and how did you handle that? Thank you.
She's a big fan. She wanted to know what the most challenging customer experience is that you've had. Let me show that one here. Yeah, what's the most challenging customer experience you've had, and how did you handle that?
I don't know if it was the most challenging, but on New Year's Eve, we were up in the North Atlantic, and they had a tradition. The family that owned the boat had a tradition that they all got together for New Year's Eve dinner, and they had this one particular type of suckling pig that they always had for dinner on New Year's Eve to bring in the new year in. And being on the boat made it extremely challenging, especially in the North Atlantic in the middle of December, or the end of December. And we ended up having to locate one of these pigs in New Zealand and have it overnighted to Baltimore in order to have it here for New Year's Eve. That there was a whole bunch of walls that had to be jumped over for that one.
Awesome. Thank you, Evie, for sending in that question video. That was great. What do you think, like, if you have, thinking back on your proudest achievements, what makes you feel most proud about your work and your career?
I think my proudest achievement is being married to my wife for 45 years, and she hasn't thrown me out of my ear yet.
Well, the other thing is, like, managing relationships, and I know that, for people who work at sea, it's not easy to, to maintain those close bonds when you're kind of away often, and it's definitely a different dynamic and a difficult dynamic sometimes to weather.
It sure is. It's you have to realize that everything is a compromise, and if you keep yourself so rigid and so strict and so focused that you are unwilling to compromise, you're going to have a lot of issues, because boat owners have to compromise all the time. I want this much room in the interior. Well, if you have a lot of room in the interior, that means you're going to have less room in the exterior. It's just laws of physics. So you have to be willing to give in one area and what you're willing to sacrifice in another area. And if you're totally unwilling to sacrifice anything for yourself, for your relationship, for your work, for your career, odds are life's going to be pretty long and hard and difficult for you.
True. I should. I'll remind my husband of that later. I'll send him a clip and be like, "Here's the advice for how to maintain a long relationship." Well, congratulations! I know you guys did have your a big, it's a landmark anniversary. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Well, before we let you go here this morning, we did have some quick fire questions, or some kind of, just kind of like out the hat type questions to ask you. What is your favorite book? And it can't be your own, unfortunately.
Old Man in the Sea by Hemingway.
I suspected you might say that after your earlier tease to that. Are you a morning or a nighttime person?
Depends on what's going on. I can be a nighttime person if the situation's appropriate, but I'm pretty much of a morning person. I like to get up early and get things done.
What about how many hours, on average do you sleep a night then? Are you kind of like do you need to sleep?
Between 6 and 8.
Very healthy.
Just this interior clock that wakes me up. So.
What about the last place or public event or concert or that you went to pre-COVID?
I think it was a Jimmy Buffett / Eagles concert here in South Florida.
Nice.
Pretty over the top.
Out with a bang without knowing that it would be the last one for a while.
Yeah, it was great. They held it at the football stadium, at the Dolphin Stadium. So there was like 75, 80,000 people there, and well, more than that because they filled up the whole infield with fans and everything. And it was pretty cool.
Awesome. Do you prefer online shopping or in-store shopping?
I don't prefer shopping at all.
I knew you were going to say that.
I just, if I need something and I have to go to the mall, I make a beeline for the store that I have to go to. I know what I want. I walk, I pick it up, I go to the cashier, and I get the hell out.
If you weren't a captain, I mean, I feel like we might know the answer to this, but if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing for work?
That's a tough one. I'd probably be in the restaurant business, but I've always enjoyed the challenges of doing something that somebody either didn't want to do or was afraid to do or couldn't do just because of the challenge. I really, really love a huge challenge. I find it very stimulating and invigorating.
I just saw a question come in here from Brandon that said, how reliable is the old, the saying, red sky at night, sailor's delight, and red sky morning, sailor's warning? Is there truth to that?
You can take that one to the bank. It has to do with atmospheric pressure which causes it, and it's 90% of the time that's spot on.
Good to know. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky morning, sailor's warning. Or shepherds, depending. I know the UK, we often say shepherd's warning as well. Question here from Jamie. What advice do you have for companies who think they're delivering great customer experience? How do they continue to up level if they aren't getting negative feedback? Should they still continue to reevaluate their service?
If they're not getting any negative feedback, somebody's screwing the pooch somewhere along the line. Somebody's dropping the ball, because nobody gives 100% reliable customer service all the time. So if you're not getting any negative feedback, somebody's hiding it from you, and you need to find out who's doing that, get rid of them, and then find out what your clientele actually think. And if that means having to go out there in person by yourself, if you're the restaurant owner and all your wait staff is telling you everything's great, everybody loves it, just go sit down to the kitchen door and watch the plate come back and see if they're coming back to your meal. And if they're coming back after the meal being pushed around their house, it looks like somebody tried to eat it. Something's probably wrong. And then you need to get off your ass and get out front, in the front of the house, and go talk to these customers and find out where the problem was, and then take steps to correct it.
You feel like most business, owners should have that kind of real customer relationship, like that direct experience, and try and put themselves in situations where they are around their customers.
That's what we always did when we had our restaurants. We would, if somebody had a negative experience, we would go ahead and comp that meal. But on top of that, we wouldn't just comp that meal. We would comp the next meal the next time they came in, because we didn't want to lose that customer or lose the opportunity to make a better impression. Anybody can comp the meal that you screwed up, but comp the next meal too. Be money well spent.
So that feeling of being valued as well, right? And listened to, just feeling like you are being listened to and heard by the company.
Everybody wants to feel like their opinion matters. So you're not just blowing it off and just tossing a few dollars at it. You actually care about them as a customer and what you can do for them, because that's what it's all about. You can go eat anywhere.
Mm. Well, I went slightly off tangent there with questions, but I think two last questions before we let you go for today. I quite like this one. What are the unwritten rules of where you work? Or kind of, I guess it could also be what insider knowledge. There's only someone in the industry knows.
As far as the TV show or as far as yachting? One of the unwritten rules I use in yachting is never approach the document faster than you want to hit it.
Some good advice. I feel like that's pretty.
It served me very, very well. I'm sure airline pilots use the same analogy. Never approach the ground any higher than you want to hit it.
Awesome. And then I love this question that came in from Angie, who'd asked, what is the weirdest sea creature you've seen?
The first time I saw a very, very large squid or an octopus. Octopuses are very, I don't know if is that a word, octopuses? Is that a plural or octopi? I'm not sure.
I don't think octopi, I don't think that exists. It sounds like some kind of pie.
But they're amazing creatures. They swim backwards. And a octopus that's the size of a common throw pillow that you'd see on a sofa somewhere can actually squeeze through a 1-inch diameter hole. And then they can morph into different colors and shapes. And it's just really, really incredible. So I think that would be the weirdest.
I kind of do have a slight fear of that giant, deep sea octopus of, many sci-fi films that exist.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, do have a bit of a fear when you're swimming in the ocean. I'm like, what if? Because they are, octopus and squid are incredible, like you say, and they're really intelligent as well. They're really so clever.
It's comical. People would get out in the middle of the ocean and they go like, "How deep is it here?" And you're like, "Well, this is like 24,000 feet." You look at the chart and you go like, "Oh my God!" And they're all nervous and scared. And like, "How tall are you?"
Me, 5'6".
5'6". So it only needs to be 5'7" for you to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So the extra 24,493 feet really doesn't make any difference.
Well, not to terrify anyone too much when they go swimming in the sea anytime soon, but yeah, it's incredible. It's just such a it's like space, right? It's it's underexplored and there's so much unknown in there, but it
really is incredible. I mean, there's whole mountain ranges underneath the ocean. And most of it hasn't been explored.
Well, hopefully giant squid is not coming our way anytime soon anyway. Thank you so much. We've got just a message here from Matt who says, thank you, Captain, for a great Q&A. Thank you so much for joining us today on the live stream. We really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Where I know you have a good kind of connection on social. You're very active on Twitter, but also on Instagram as well. So what's the handle for people to kind of follow you and get in touch?
Gosh, I don't know.
Well, actually, I do have there we go. We've got your at Capt CAPTHIR. There we go.
Ella.
Oh, LR. Oh, yeah. Oh, Lee. Yeah, that would make sense. There we go. I've got that up on the screen at the moment for people to check out if they want to go find you on
Instagram
Twitter.
Is Captain_Lee_Rosbach.
Awesome. And we'll drop some links as well into the chat box for people to check out after this. And then Wendy also just saying, thanks, Captain Lee. Some of your fans chirping in to say they've been enjoying the chat. So thank you so much. I hope you stay safe, stay well during all the craziness of COVID. And we look forward to seeing more from you on Bravo and Below Deck and online.
Thanks for having me, Laura. I really enjoyed it.
Take care. So there we go. Captain Lee. So wonderful to speak to him today. Thank you to everybody for getting questions in. And like I say, we'll be posting some links for people to see how they can get in touch and follow Captain Lee on social media if they do want to kind of just ask any more questions, get in touch and say hi. Before we wrap up for today, for this week's live stream, I just wanted to again say that we do have a brand new podcast with Adroll, which is exciting, Unrolling e-commerce. It's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on Google Play, all of those podcast places. So you can check it out and you can listen to the first 2 episodes. There's going to be new episodes every Wednesday. I do have a clip for you to listen to at the moment.
Folks don't have enough income to pay for their meals or to pay for rent or, those sorts of things. And we just made the decision really early on that it wasn't worth any additional conversion because of how that messaging might be perceived in the midst of such a difficult situation for so many people.
We saw a huge uptick in not just like open rates and click rates, but purchases too. We had customers just communicating and engaging with our content more so along those channels because we were giving them opportunities to do so.
The change was made incredibly quickly, and we're still testing this campaign, testing different headlines and testing different galleries that show the different ways that people work from home.
There we go. This is a little clip from this week's first episode. You can go and check that out. I'll share it in the link. Really excited to have that launch in. And we've got a whole host of different direct-to-consumer companies that are sharing their voices and sharing their stories. So do go check that out at adroll.com and /podcasts is where you can find some of our audio content. We were going to be back in a few weeks' time, of course, with more live streams. So I say a few weeks because we're bi-weekly. And we've got a ton of different topics, a ton of different guests that are going to be coming up. And I'm trying to actually pull up, oh no, it's not going to work. For our next guest, anyway, we have Pure Pressure who's going to be joining us in the coming weeks. So we'll be sharing more information about that online and on our social media. Before I go, though, I will leave you with Dave's Diary, episode 11. If you've not heard of Dave before, he is our company mascot. As weird and wonderful as it is, he's a skeleton that lives in our San Francisco office. And he brings some social media advice, some advertising, some marketing, digital marketing tips and advice. And this week, he's talking about ROI.
Dear Diary, I'm trying to boost my ROI, a fancy new term I've learned. Return on investment. Money back and in my dusty pockets. 70% of humans use Instagram to discover products. Pinterest is one of the best places to show and sell products, with 93% of shoppers using pins to plan or make an online purchase. Facebook is a great way to get started in social commerce. I can add products and provide people with pricing, shipping options, inventory status, and photos. If I want to be down with the kids, Snapchat is one solution to explore. Approximately 68% of Snapchat users are between 18 and 29 years old. Most surprising is WhatsApp. There's a catalog feature that lets business owners list and price their products in an attractive gallery. I'm off to ping my peeps on chat. That bunch of suckers will love this feature. Dave.
There we go. Dave, who is also residing in my cupboard at the moment during lockdown. So, behaving himself. All right, we're nearly out of time for today. Of course, if you want to find any more information about Adroll, you can go to adroll.com. And there we have /resources where you can check out all of our blogs, our webinars, our ebooks. Of course, we do live streams and now podcasts. We have so much stuff to check out. But also, if you're new to Adroll in general and you're like, what is Adroll? Then, of course, we are a marketing platform for e-commerce, growing e-commerce brands. So we know that you may know us for ads and media, but we're more than that. We do email marketing, AI-driven product recommendations, and also cross-channel measurement and all of that jazz in one platform. So we really are a little bit of a one-stop shop. Check it out, adroll.com. Thank you again to Captain Lee for joining us today on Adroll Live, and thank you to everybody for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time here on Adroll Live.